Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. So I am here on this very hot Sunday down at the beach because recently I have been at the beach a lot but not enjoying the water and doing usual beach stuff. I have been photographing Little Terns and Egrets, and I've been out quite a lot in the last few weeks photographing these two species, specifically trying to get lesser terns because they arrived here about a month ago in Okinawa, and I'm trying to get shots of them coming out of the water with fish, and they dive so quickly, and I've been trying different techniques, different settings on my camera to see if I can get a shot. And while I've been doing that, there have been a number of times where little egrets and reef egrets have come up really close to me, and I have been getting absolutely soaked and covered in sand and hurting my legs and my back to get really low level shots of these birds trying to get food out of the surf. And I think you'll see later with some of the shots that you want to try and get as low as possible for the most dynamic shots. I mean literally right above the water, the camera. Even 6 inches above the water to me in occasion can be too much. I want to get as low as possible, and I'll show you some photos that I've taken on the computer later that illustrates that. I've also been playing around with using the crop sensor mode on my Z6ii, so to zoom in and you get 20 megapixels equivalent. Some people say you can just zoom in anyway and it's the same image quality, which may well be true, but sometimes I just like to go into crop mode just to give me a better idea of the composition and the exact angle I want with the finished article. You can just see it better through the camera than just guessing and then cropping it later in post. So yeah, I'm going to go back to the computer and just show you a few of the shots that I've got. I haven't edited that many because I've got so many, but I hope it will just illustrate certain techniques you can use to get the best possible shots when photographing down at the beach. Hi everyone, just a quick interlude while I'm editing the video. If you're new here, please do consider subscribing. So many people who watch aren't subscribed. It's really appreciated. Just a touch of a button. Anyway, back to the video, and I appreciate it. Take care. Now sometimes I'll go for an hour and a half after work, and a couple of weeks ago I went every night, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Just by chance my kids didn't have football or my wife took them, so I had like an hour and a half every day after work. I would take 3 sets of clothing. My work clothing I was wearing, I would then take the clothing that I'm wearing into the water that would just get wet and sandy and horrible, and then a third pair just to chuck on to drive back home after I'd finished. Because if you want to get these shots, you've got to make sacrifice. If you want to get the best shots, you often have to prepare to get wet, sandy, and some discomfort. Rather than just standing on the beach like this, higher than the birds are, yeah, you can get some nice shots, but you're going to get better shots by getting uncomfortable, getting out of your comfort zone, and really getting down low. My kids are playing football somewhere over there, so I'll walk along this beach for a little bit and then I'll go and watch the last hour of their football practice. Now I started in crop mode just because I felt the bird was a bit far away, just so I could get a better idea of what kind of composition I want. You can see I'm low to the ground because of the distracting foreground. Now getting low is something that in this video I'm totally promoting, but obviously if there is rocks and the like in front of you, you've got to be careful. When you're actually deeper in the water and it's just you, water and the bird, getting down low really works. But when there's greenery and rocks around, it doesn't always work. So yeah, so I'm in crop mode. I noticed some black-naped terns flying off way in the distance. You can see heavy heat haze there. So be careful of heat haze when you're photographing at the water. You can see there that I'm in crop mode. So here is a little egret, quite far from me, but it's just a personal thing for me. Sometimes I like being in crop mode, just making me feel closer to the action. But what you'll see in a minute he starts coming towards me and flies close towards me, and I then, due to being in crop mode, then I missed some potentially really nice shots. And again, I'm sharing my mistakes so you don't do them. So if you are in crop mode, but you think the bird is going to come closer to you, just be a bit wary of, because here I have definitely missed some nice shots. The bird was really nicely angled, the light was hitting it really nicely, and because I was still in crop mode, the bird was too close, and I did cut out some nice shots. Sometimes when I'm first looking at my shots, if I'm photographing a white bird and there's a lot of sun, I just very quickly take it into Photoshop and just quickly use the highlight slider just to see if I haven't blown the whites, and then I close the image and edit it again later, just to check that those whites are fine. Now here you can see I've gone back out of crop mode into regular mode. I've got more scope to get the bird properly in the frame. There's some nice shots as the bird approaches the water. Of course, all of this happens super quick. These little egrets are very skittish, and they're just going from one place to one place trying to grab a fish. And on this particular day, I really liked the colour of the water. It was just a really nice blue. And that's not always the case. Sometimes it depends how the light hits the water, what time you're there. Oh yeah, it's a nice shot. I like that shot there of the bird just making contact. And again, I really like the colour of the splashes of water. So lots of action, and luckily being in regular mode meant that I wasn't clipping off the wings and stuff, which if I'd still been in crop mode would have happened. And yeah, the colour of that water is just so beautiful. And again, I'm super low in the water here, really hurting, bending over. I'm not lying down, I'm bending over, looking at my flippy screen, trying to make sure the camera doesn't get wet. But I just really like the angle it gives on the bird. Ideally, I wouldn't want those houses in the background, but so be it. They don't totally kill the image. I'd prefer if they weren't there, but that's where the bird was. But yeah, just look at the colour of that water. Stunning. And initially the bird was kind of skittish of me, and that's why I went into crop mode, because he was just a bit too far. But then the longer I was there, the more comfortable it became. On occasion he came really close to me, even so that he was almost filling the frame on the full frame, which I was using a 500mm 5.6. So yes, often you want longer reach, but if you're just patient and you wait for the birds to come to you, they'll often get comfortable with you and then they'll start approaching. As long as you don't move suddenly. If I get up and stretch my legs, sometimes he'll fly off. That's why you've just got to stay in position, and it does sometimes hurt. Your neck, your back, your legs are all hurting, but it's worthwhile to stick it out for another 10-15 minutes when that bird gets close and you can get that perfect shot. I've got to edit so many of these photos. I haven't as yet, but as you can see, they don't need much editing, to be honest. They look really great out the gate, actually, but yeah, I definitely need to work a little bit on those whites. But yeah, I went to photograph terns and I stayed to photograph egrets, because of the 5 or 6 times I went out, only on a couple times I saw many terns. On every occasion I saw egrets, and on this occasion obviously I was able to get really close. And yes, you're lucky in Okinawa, you can get close to egrets. Anywhere away from the sea, you don't get as close as this. If you see them in a field, they won't let you get that close. If you see them in a lake, you can do, but in the ocean is where I find I can get really close to them, unless you see one in a park. And sort of the hour I spent with this guy, it got a lot of fish. I just love the way the water looks when it splashes. As the bird approaches, the fish all panic. They can sense it or see the bird coming, and they all splash around. And I think these shots illustrate clearly what I'm saying. I moved a little bit further back to the beach. I wasn't right on top of the water as I was before. Before I was probably 3 or 4 centimeters above the water, putting my camera at risk somewhat, but I just felt I was getting the best shots. When I'd moved back to the beach here, I just raised my camera just a little bit, but even here you can see there would be more of the immediate background in focus. It wouldn't be completely blurred out like it was before. Even though these are still nice shots, for me, I want them when the background right behind the bird is blurred out. So all you're looking at is the bird and the splashes, and if it gets a fish, the fish. While I was photographing that egret, a suddenly noticed a turn, it dived, and as in most of the cases, I missed it because they are so fast. I managed to get it as it came out, but the actual impact, it didn't get a fish, so it didn't matter. But yeah, you've got to be aware when you're photographing. I often get distracted. So let me briefly talk about the terns. As I said, I didn't have as much opportunity with the terns as I did the egrets, and they're so fast. I got a million sharp photos of them in the air, but of close by dives, not as many. I saw it suddenly close to me hovering, got distracted, looked back, and suddenly, just as it was going into the water. So I got it coming out of the water with a fish. And again, you can see the beautiful colour of the water here. And as I said, these things happen in a split second. It's so fast, but the watercolour is lovely. I got a lot of shots of the fish diving, and I got shots of the fish coming out of the water. I didn't get that many sequences of the fish diving and coming out of the water. Because one of the issues with my camera, and I think with a lot of cameras, is this autofocus system can get slightly confused when the splashes of water happen on the impact of the bird. So it will follow the bird until it hits the water, and then that immediate splash sometimes distracts the autofocus. And you can understand why. It's incredibly difficult. There's a huge amount of water in front of the bird in comparison to the size of the bird. The autofocus can't see the bird properly, so obviously it loses the tracking ability. And I think nowadays the measure of the camera is how quickly it can lock back on. But it's not always easy. Sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't. I changed the autofocus system on a number of occasions to 3D, to wide area, to small box, to big box. It didn't seem to make a difference. When there was a splash, it could sometimes throw the autofocus, as you can see here. Initially, you can see the bird coming out of the water is in focus, and then if you zoom in on the water, I think on the next frame, you can see the water is then sharp and in focus, and it lost the bird. I'm not sure if that's ever going to be able to be fixed. Very difficult situation there to keep focus on the bird. Right, if you're still listening and you managed to stay awake, I really appreciate that. Sorry for droning on, but I think I shared some relatively valuable information there. Anyway, I've hardly edited any pictures. I'll just chuck up just a few that I took over the few days that I went out. Because the conditions were so good, I was sometimes photographing at 10,000th of a second shutter speed, 5.6 aperture, because the light allowed it. My ISO never really went above 1000. So it was really great conditions. This first shot, I think, was 6,400th of a second, 5.6. Just shows the bird coming out with a fish. The second one is an egret pouncing on a fish in the sea, and you just see the chaos that happens for that split second with all the other fish jumping all over the place. All these splashes just happen even before the bird has made contact with the water. Next is another turn. Again, I think this was 6,400th of a second, turning its head as it picks the fish that comes out of the water. And the last one, I think, is my favourite one of this lot, where you've got beautiful light as the egret spreads its wings. I think this was 5,000th of a second. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. If you're new here, please do subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. Take care and see you on the next one. Bye.